and welcome back to the Lorraine Murphy Show. This week I am wrapping up my little mini series on the 4 essential pillars to run a successful business and have a successful life alongside it as well. So in week 1, we focused on energy. In week 2, we focused on strategy. Week 3, last week, we focused on mindset. And today, to bring the series home, I am focusing on identity. So we could really think about identity as being it's almost like this silent saboteur. So if maybe you've been cruising through the first 3 pillars of what I've been sharing, identity may be your classroom this year. Let's see. So when we think about identity, it really is the lens through which you make every choice. It's the how you price, it's how you show up, it's how much you allow yourself to believe in your own success. And what identity actually is, it's essentially our own internal self-concept. It's, if I think about myself as Lorraine Murphy, what are all the stories and the beliefs and the perceptions that make up my own self-identity? What's really critical about identity is that it tells us what we believe we're capable of, but also it tells us what we think we are allowed to have or we are deserving of having in our lives and in our worlds. So most of this identity is formed probably before we even remember it being formed. So definitely from our family, our caregivers, from our siblings, from our friends and who we surrounded ourselves with as children, and obviously as we grew older as well. So many beliefs and identity formed around school. Am I good at school? Am I not good at school? Am I academic? Am I not? Am I sporty? Am I not sporty? All of the things. And then very much in terms of our early work experiences. So whether that was, for me, it was working in the deli of our local supermarket when I was 14. For you, it may have been waitressing at the local restaurant. For others, it may be working in retail, whatever it might be. So all of those different early experiences shape us and shape what we believe our self-concept to be. And so much of that early identity formation, it's about fitting in. It's about staying safe. It's about maximizing the likelihood of us being liked by those who are caring for us and by our peers as well. So what can happen is that there's behaviors that served us really well back then. There's behaviors that served me really well when I was 7 years old in primary school. There are behaviors that served me really well when I was working in that supermarket when I was 14. However, they're not necessarily the behaviors and the values that serve me for where I want to go in future. So identity work is probably the deepest form of personal development work that we can do, because essentially what we're doing is we are shifting our own perception of who we are to being a not completely, but a different version of ourselves who we haven't met yet. So in that way, it's almost the riskiest and the most uncertain work that we can do, because essentially what we're trying to do is tweak our identity to be able to hold the level of success or joy or pleasure or money or love or success, whatever it might look like that we are seeking to create. So really what we're thinking about here with identity, it's a constant reinvention process. But it's not reinventing ourselves and being fake. It's about shedding away all the shit and all the beliefs and all the stories and all the experiences that are holding us back from stepping into the truest, most successful version of ourselves that we can possibly be. So much of identity and that early days shaping serves us so beautifully. But then there's also probably quite a solid dose for each of us that isn't really serving us. And it's actually at a point where it's actually holding us back from what it is that we want to create. So when we do all that formation, those early years, then we enter our adult era and we leave that, the super predictable, stable wage model that most of our parents lived. And for a lot of us listening, a lot of you listening, and definitely for me, I chose the unpredictability of building my own business. So my dad, he just turned 70 and I got to be back in Ireland for his day that he retired. So he retired just after we arrived back in Ireland after our amazing Lapland trip and over Christmas. And my dad was in that job for over 40 years. So I think he was in that job longer than, like, as in before I was born. I always remember my dad working for that company. That's like my earliest memories, or my dad was employed with that company. So to go from a family and a belief system that values that stability, that predictability, that sense of, you know, someone else has got my back, to creating that stability and that security and I've got my own back, that even that alone as an identity shift is fucking huge, like so huge. And each of you listening will have gone through so many iterations of different identities for yourselves, and we will continue to, you know, have even more different identity shifts for ourselves. So the reason I want to talk about this is that identity is so critically important within business. And the beauty of identity alongside that is that it's not fixed. We can shift and we can change our belief system and our identity. If we think about our brains being almost completely plastic, like we do have that ability to shift and change and evolve. But what I say to my mentees, and I'm going to say to you right now as part of today's episode too, is that so many founders want to build a bigger business. So maybe it's bigger scaling, it's bigger team, it's bigger dollars, it's bigger clients, it's bigger space for them, whatever it might be. However, we cannot create a bigger business for ourselves if we can't first, as the founder, hold a bigger container. If we can't build a bigger container for ourselves as individuals, a container that's big enough to hold the vision of this business that we seek to create, then we're not going to get that business, if that makes sense. So we need to first build a bigger container for ourselves, and then we can build a bigger container and hold that bigger container for the business. So I find this is a mistake that a lot of founders make, where they go straight to, okay, how do I build a bigger business? And how do I hire the staff? And what kind of cash do I need to raise or bring in, or whatever it might mean, whatever is required. But what they're forgetting is the shift in their own identity. Because what will happen in that case, if you're straight into the business and how you grow the business, is that you will constantly hit like almost like mini glass ceilings that are slowing you down, are stopping you from moving forward, are keeping you kind of back at this level that your own self-perception believes, okay, this is the level I'm deserving of and I'm worthy of and I'm capable of. Up there, more, too scary, too big, not for me. So this is why the identity piece is so incredibly important. And if we think about this in business and how your identity and your self-perception affects your business, it affects how much you think you can charge. Because if your identity is holding you back in a scarcity mindset, you're not going to charge more. You're going to keep your prices small. You're going to play small when it comes to cash. It's going to hugely impact how visible you believe you can be on a whole other level. It's going to affect that. It's going to affect whether or not you make decisions confidently. Like if you are confident to move forward and making bold decisions and moves forward, it's going to hugely affect that. It's going to affect what you perceive your risk profile to be. So I, for many years, believed that my risk profile is quite low because my parents' risk profile is quite low. So my risk profile is not as high as Wade's, but it's definitely higher than my parents'. So risk and how much risk you are willing to take in your business. And I'm not saying risk is a good thing, obviously. I think calculated risk is a good thing. So how much risk you're prepared to take is going to be directly tuned into your identity and who you believe yourself to be. It's also going to affect how you step into leadership. So are you someone who is going to step forward? Maybe it's not necessarily building a huge team, but it's being a leader for your clients or your community or your passion projects or your side hustles or your voluntary, your voluntary roles. So all of these different elements, if you were to kind of like dig a little bit deeper on them, they are so heavily influenced by your identity and what you feel it is safe and okay for you to go forth and claim within your business and also in your life. So you could have the most incredible strategy. You could have flawless execution. But if your identity cannot hold the magnitude and the depth and the scope and the beauty of your goals, you are not going to realize them. So we really want to see identity as something that we can proactively change, that is within our sovereignty to work on and to focus on and to change, and to help ourselves in very gentle, elegant ways to align our own identity and attune our own identity into that which we wish to create and attract into our worlds and into our businesses. So if someone is out of alignment with their identity, you might experience things like you set really ambitious goals, but deep down you're still wearing the, oh, I'm just a beginner, I'm not worthy of this, that kind of mentality or that self-perception. It might be you really wanting a team and making epic strides to try and build a team, but you're still operating as a solopreneur and thinking as a solopreneur, and for whatever reason, the team support that you do engage doesn't quite work out. So if you have an identity that says something like, I need to do everything on my own, it's impossible for me to be supported, business has to be a struggle, well, of course, you are going to struggle to attract the kind of talent and the kind of support that will enable you to move forward in your business. You may really want a 6-figure business. You may really want a 7-figure business or an 8-figure business, a 9-figure, or 20-figure business for all I care. But your self-concept is, I play small. I'm not a big business owner. That's not for me. You might rehearse every single launch, every single product sale. You might rehearse the absolute crap out of it, but something holds you back at the finish line where you're just not quite getting the results that you may feel like. That next level, you see your friends hitting it really easily, maybe colleagues, business owner friends, your business bestie just seems to be able to get to that next level. And for some reason, you just can't seem to get there. And maybe you've been circling around for the last 2, 3, 5 years with a similar issue that you haven't managed to get on top of yet within your business. So all of these examples and what I'm sharing here are examples of identity misalignment. So it's almost like your internal self has not caught up with your external aspirations. So if any of these statements that I just shared are resonating for you, might just do that again, Jock, because she just jumped up and rattled everything. Yeah. So if these statements resonated for you, what you're probably experiencing is that identity misalignment. And it's really simple. It's just where your internal self has not caught up with your external aspirations just yet. Just yet. It's very changeable. So there's a real cost of this. You may be falling short of your goals. And yeah, you always get there. You might feel stuck. You feel like you're making progress, but actually that next level hasn't quite landed. And it's just because the inner you has not expanded to accommodate what you want to create on an outer level. And obviously I'm kind of weighting this more towards business, but this is everything. It's the relationship that you want to have. It's the kids that, the experience you want to have with your kids. It's travel aspirations. It's your bank accounts. Everything that we want to create on an external level starts first from within us and our own, even if it's an unconscious belief that we are deserving or we are worthy of having that. This is something that I have experienced a lot. As I said, just to go on the journey of, being raised in a family where having a really great job where a boss was going to look after you, that was my aspiration. Like that's something I would fully have expected to hope to have. So the idea for me, if I look back at Lorraine, who was 18, or even Lorraine, who was 25, to have her own business, it just wasn't even something I would consider that was something that I would do. So there's a few things that have been really, really helpful. And I want to pass this on to you because I think maybe more than any other episode in this series, this may be the most jangling for some people because maybe identity is a piece of the puzzle and the personal growth puzzle that you haven't ventured into just yet. So I actually want to give you quite a few considerations for how you could do your own version of identity work in order to, create an inner life that is able to mirror and hold that outer life that you want to create. So the first thing that has been incredibly helpful for me has been mentoring and coaching. So it's been invaluable because obviously my hot take on mentoring is my role as a mentor is to pass back the lessons that I am learning. And it is to help you spot the kind of speed bumps up ahead that maybe you're not aware of just yet. So I'm a few steps ahead of you in the journey, and I'm kind of helping you come on the journey and saving you all the stress of the drama or the dead ends that I experienced to save you doing that. So it's definitely been invaluable from that perspective because it's directly linking into people or tapping into people who are living the lives, or they're building the businesses, or they're having the experiences, or they have the money that I really want to have. So they've directly, passed on their lessons and their insights and their experiences to me, which has been invaluable. However, The other layer that is so incredibly important for me with mentoring is it's being around people who are already living the reality that I want to live, whether that is their relationship or their kids or their families or whatever it might be, their business. So what happens is when I am spending time with a coach or a mentor, from them sharing their experiences with me, I am realizing that, if it's possible for you to do this, then it's also possible for me. So that's been a really big identity shift, helping identity shifting, because it normalizes, something that I feel could be really difficult, like building $1 million business. In the early days of building my first business and knowing that there were people who were doing that and I was spending time with them, it made me realize that it was possible for me too. And I went on to do that quite quickly with that first business. The second is breathing the same oxygen as the life that I want. So what I mean by this, it's not necessarily true that I will be able to go and be coached or spend time in a room or attend an event hosted by every single person that I admire. But it is possible for me to follow that person on Instagram, to listen to their podcast, to read their book. I remember an incredible quote by Seth Godin, the marketing guru. And he was talking to, I think it was Tim Ferriss, years ago on a podcast. And he said, when you think about it, a book is the best deal of your life, because essentially what you're getting someone's experience. They have sat down and they have told you exactly how they did something, and they're going to charge you $30 to do that. He said that is the deal of the century. And I never thought about books like that. And I just thought that is so true. So you can access the oxygen of the life that you want to lead purely by following people, connecting with their content, and hearing how they did it. People are so incredibly generous with their experience, particularly if they're, looking to build businesses and leveraging that IP that they have, their hard-earned IP. So being in the same oxygen of that, it shapes your internal landscape. When you hear someone else talk about their first 5-figure month or their first 6-figure month or their first 7-figure month, that makes you realize that you can do that too. When you hear about someone who has taken 2 months off from their business and they've been traveling and they've been almost fully offline and their team is running their business in their absence, that makes you realize I can have that too. If you meet someone who has got an incredibly passionate and loving and connected relationship with their partner and they've been together 30, 40, 50 years, that makes you realize I can have that too. So it's almost these models that we have. There's a brilliant quote, and you've probably heard it yourself. In order to be it, you need to see it. So if you're not seeing it in your everyday world right now with potentially your friendship circle, your colleagues, you need to seek that elsewhere. And sorry, to be really clear, I'm not saying we abandon those people that have loved us for all our lives. What I am saying is that if there are specific results that you want to create in your life or your business, that you need to actively seek out the people who are getting those results. And maybe for you, they're going to be some of your friends. I've got incredibly successful and happy and brilliant friends. And maybe for you, that it's not within your immediate circle. So to bring that kind of level of insight, you need to go and build your network. And even if that is your online network, that is absolutely excellent. The other thing that I found really helpful, so in the past, when I saw someone else succeeding, particularly another woman, I would feel really jealous and go, oh, look at her. Why does she get to have that? That's not fair. I should get that. And it was such small-minded thinking, like, holy crap, so small-minded. When I started to see if another woman was succeeding, whether it was because she looked super hot at the gym, or she was making shitloads of cash, or she had an amazing handbag, because she had those things, I started to reframe my feeling and my energy towards her. It was, rather than me going, I'm so jealous of you and I want what you have, it changed to, I am so impressed by you because by you having this thing, it makes me realize that it's possible for me to have it too. And that brought in this beautiful energy of really celebrating that woman and going, oh my God, look at your amazing Chanel handbag, or look at you so happy with your partner, or look at you with your beautiful family, or whatever it might be. So it's almost like a mindfulness or a mindset practice of cultivating that sense of celebration and gratitude when we see others succeeding and having the things or doing the things that we want to do, because it means that it's also possible for us. So really reframing, I guess, that comparison, moving away from comparison and into evidence, because if she's doing it, well, I can do it too. How cool is that? Again, you cannot be what you cannot see. That one shift alone If you do nothing else around identity work, that one shift alone will unlock so much for you, because it's tapping a complete abundance mindset. You know, a scarcity mindset is, oh, well, she has that, therefore I can't have that. Or because they're doing this, that means there's less for me. Whereas when we tap into the sense of gratitude and celebration for how well someone is doing it, whatever part of their life it is, it's the opposite. It's moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. It's very, very powerful and very, very special. The other, I guess, modalities, to be a bit more specific, that have been very helpful for me in cleaning up my identity, I guess, if that makes sense. I worked with an intimacy coach early last year called Eleanor Hadley. And something that Eleanor talked about was, we all have these beliefs. So specifically in this work with her, we were talking about sex. So it's almost like your beliefs are your garden. Like you're planting your garden, and you've got this beautiful garden, or maybe not so beautiful, depends. And this garden reflects your beliefs around a particular area. So as I said, with Eleanor, we were working through intimacy and sex and relationships and love and all the things. What she pointed out to me was that not every flower that was in that garden had been planted by me. A lot in that garden had been planted by others. So I had almost unconsciously adopted or assimilated the beliefs that other people had around intimacy and sex that weren't necessarily mine. So some of the work that we did together was doing a cleanup, essentially. It's almost like weeding out everything in your garden. So I'm talking about sex here, but we can talk about money. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about physical health. Whatever your garden is that you're considering right now, you get to pluck out the weeds and chuck them out of your garden, so that what you are left with is the beliefs that you subscribe to and are yours, that you are claiming ownership of. So I think working with different modalities and tapping certain modalities to help you identify what is your stuff and what is someone else's stuff is very, very helpful. So for me, a couple of things that have helped me the most, I mean, obviously therapy, I see a psychologist regularly. I've worked with different therapists and counselors over the years. Very, very helpful in terms of just talking through things and identifying what's my contribution here, what am I taking responsibility for here, and so on. Really, really helpful. The other modality that I love is kinesiology. So I see my kinesiologist every month. Sometimes I see her a couple of times a month if it's an area of really fast growth within the business, or maybe there's some personal stress going on that I just want to stay on top of. So I find the kinesiology really good because it has helped me tidy up my identity and realign how I see myself in line with the goals that I want to have. So at the start of every year, I do a session with my kinesiologist and I get her across all my top line goals. So I pretty much say to her, okay, these are my goals. I need you to program my subconscious to get here. Thank you. And then we stay on top of it every month. So it's exactly that. It's weeding the garden. It's where is self-sabotage coming up? Where am I, running on someone else's energy that's not mine? Where do I need to tighten up a boundary? It's just a big cleanup every month. And every month that we do that, my identity shifts a little bit more in line with this beautiful future that I envisage for myself. The other modality that has been very, very helpful is neurolinguistic programming. So I haven't actually practiced this for quite a while, but definitely in the early days when I was in a very, as secure as any job can be, a secure job, and I was getting ready to start my own business, I went to quite a few NLP, so neurolinguistic programming seminars. So these would be like weekend sessions that would be run by an NLP trainer, like a master trainer. And in those sessions, I evaluate, okay, what are my biggest values? What are the negative beliefs that hold me back? What are the beliefs that I need to shift and change if I want to have this life that I am designing, in this particular session of this weekend seminar? That was really helpful. And there's two specific weekends that I did. One, as I was kind of wondering, might I start a business someday? I had a very, very big transformation over that weekend. And then another one was I was just about to hand in my notice at my job to start my first business. And I walked into this NLP seminar and it was like a Saturday and Sunday thing. And the first person I saw was one of my colleagues from my job. And her name was Claire. And I just said, oh my God, Claire. Okay, I need to be really honest with you. I'm here because I'm starting my own business. And I'm here just to see, what work do I need to do in order to be really ready to step into that next chapter. And she just laughed and she was very sweet and funny. So yeah, NLP was very, very helpful in those early days. I'd highly recommend it as well. So what NLP does, they dissolve those old identity limits that we may have carried, for decades. And they enable us to move past that, that survival wiring and into an identity that will really help us thrive on every level that we want to. The other thing that I find really helpful is a bit of self-coaching. I talked about this a little bit last week in the mindset episode as well. Just really checking in, if I'm feeling a bit wobbly or a bit rattled or off my center, okay, where am I at right now? What's actually going on right now? And helping to support myself and cultivate that self-awareness about what might be going on at any one time. So really just saying, where am I right now? What's going on? What am I prioritizing, in my head? What are the thoughts I'm prioritizing? And what am I prioritizing externally as well? I find movement very helpful. So if I'm feeling a bit rattly, a bit wobbled, a bit like off kilter, I find just going for a walk, even if it's a 10, 15 minute walk around the block, it just gives me such a shift. Emotion is energy in motion. So the more that when you are experiencing intense emotion or intense doubt or whatever it might be, the more you can move your body, it just lets your body process that energy and get back to center as well. I guess also I wanted to, in this episode, just normalize having different layers of identity. Like, how boring would it be if there was the you that was kind of raised by your parents and that's just the you that you always were? Like, of course you're going to go through so many different identity shifts, whether it's externally because of, getting married, being engaged, starting a job, being made redundant. That was a massive blow to my identity. I was made redundant when I moved to Australia. I'm not someone who gets made redundant. Like, what? And I was fired from a job. I was fired from a contract admin job when I was in uni. And that was huge. That completely floored me. Like, I am not someone who gets sacked. I was so enraged about the fact that I was sacked. So I don't carry just one version of me as I'm sitting here recording this podcast episode to you. I carry 7-year-old Lorraine and 8-year-old Lorraine and, wanting to get pregnant Lorraine and just, sell my first business Lorraine. And that was another huge identity shift, actually, when I was known as, Lorraine from the Remarkables group. And I kind of had built this whole swagger and profile around that. And then the same time I became a mom. So I sold my business when Lexi was 6 months old. So I became a mom, sold my business, and then moved out of Sydney. We did an attempted tree change up to the Gold Coast. There was 3 huge external shifts within 6 months of each other. And that floored me. It was too much. I talked about it in my podcast episode with Katie a while ago. It was just, there was too much identity shifting too fast. And I actually think that was the precursor to me falling into depression a couple of years later, because I didn't manage to get back into my center. I did not feel clear on who I was and what I was. It was just my internal world had shifted so much. My external world had shifted so much and my internal world just couldn't deal. It was just too much. So there's a version of me who did her first Bold Darling launch. And there's a version of me who started a podcast, the very first podcast episode. And same for you. You are walking around, whether you're sitting or standing or lying down or whatever you're doing right now, like within yourself is all these other past versions of you. And also all these future potential versions of you, which I find really exciting. It's almost like a treasure hunt or a scavenger hunt that we get to go on to explore and excavate. Okay, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to focus on more in order to fully actualize the life that I want to be leading? So I want to share with you, there's some simple identity shifts that really work. And it's just, I really want to give you some very easy homework essentially from today's session. So a really good question to ask yourself is, who is the woman who already has what I want? So how is she thinking? How is she acting? What is she doing? How does she spend her, if you look at her calendar, what does her calendar look like? What does her bank account look like? What's she spending money on? What does she do on a Sunday morning? It's actually a very fun exercise to script out the life of someone who has what you want to have. And again, it can be business, it can be a family, it can be a relationship, it can be more rest, more excitement, more fun, more sex, more abundance, whatever it is. It's a very fun activity to do. And I will only be mentored and I will only seek out mentors and coaches who are living the life that I want to lead. I've got a very, very simple checklist. Are they happy? Are they hot? Are they surrounded by love and connection? And are they really wealthy? And are they living really free, exciting, adventurous lives? If the answer is yes, then I want to be mentored by you. Taking applications. Then what you can do from that, when you're really clear on who this woman is, who has all of the things and does all of the things and has the life experiences you want to have, you then get to mirror that behavior. So you get to move and you get to speak and you get to operate and you get to make decisions. It's like a game. You just get to play with this and start to model your behavior on that future version of you, that almost like that model version of you. And there's that whole thing, I'm sure you heard it when you were in the early stages, days of your career. I don't think it's as much a thing now, but it's dress for the job that you want to have, not the job that you have. This is the identity work equivalent of that. We are acting and moving through the world as the people and the women who already have what we have, because we know that that's going to manifest that for us so much quicker. Really good thing to do as well is to be very be self-aware about your language. So for example, if you're someone who says, I'm ready, I may want to do this, fingers crossed it all works out. It's shifting that from, rather than saying, I hope I'm ready or I hope I can do this, I'm ready to learn my way through it. It just puts a much more positive spin and a more empowering lens on whatever it is that you're going to do. And then, as I've already touched on as well, be very mindful about your identity environment. So how can you surround yourself with the voices, with the people, with the experiences, with the problems that people who are already living and breathing the world that you want to be in, how do you surround yourself with them? And I will also say that entrepreneurship is incredibly lonely. And I think it's extra lonely for women because we are so wired for connection and company and community. So if you were listening to this saying, I'm running my own business, but I feel really alone, I don't really know anyone else is doing this, that's a really, really hard place to be, because you always feel like the odd one out, or the one that's not quite fitting in with the rest of the crowd. So I really would invite you to try and find that sense of community. I love, for example, when in my Bold Rally Mastermind, we get together every quarter to do quarterly planning. And I love when the group gets together, because it's like the mask just comes down and they can be so real and so honest with each other and where they're at in their journey. It's very, very cool. So really try and build that identity environment. If you think about it, as the woman who has the thing or does the thing or has the business or lives the life that you want to live, who are the people that she would be intentionally surrounding herself with, and go in that direction? As I said, this is not about rejecting all the people we adore in our lives. There's absolutely a place for them. But if there is a specific experience you want to have, like building a successful business or maybe having more money in your bank account, it's just about, okay, where can you just gradually start to bring more of those kind of people in, as well as all of those people that you love and adore in your life. The other thing I would just say finally on this is that your small wins, even if they're with yourself, build your own trust in yourself. So if, for example, you say, I want to be someone who's fit and healthy and looks great in a pair of jeans, for example. Well, your small wins are going to be going to the gym consistently and finding a really nourishing diet that really serves you and supports your health. So your small wins of getting to the gym. So for me, for example, I want to do strength training 4 times a week. When I hit that last week and I did my 4th session on Saturday, I just felt like I am maintaining trust with myself, because I told myself that that's something I want to do at the start of the year, maintain my four strength sessions a week, and I did it. So the more we can build up those small wins and build up the momentum from them, the more bigger wins we'll experience, and we build even more trust with ourselves. Hoping that makes sense. So as an invitation for you, it's really to think about, if you do want to build a bigger business or a bigger life or build more love, you need to first build a bigger container for yourself in order to hold that. So we've been talking about increasing your energy over the last 4 weeks. We talked about clarifying a strategy. We've talked about strengthening your mindset. And today it's about reframing your identity to allow you to step forward and have the strategy that you lead the strategy and execute the strategy that you want to execute, to have that robust mindset, to feel fueled up and an abundance of energy each day. So from today, really think about, where is your identity aligned with the vision that you hold for yourself? And where might it still be holding you back? Where might there still be kind of like a semi-handbrake, if not a full handbrake on you? And the space that you're in right now as you're watching or listening to this episode, and the person that you are becoming, that's where that real growth happens. And so much of that growth can be fast-tracked when you can take more of an identity lens to that as well. As a quick reminder, we have got doors opening for Bold Darling very, very soon. So I'm going to pop the link to the waitlist in the show notes. And I would absolutely love to welcome you in there when we do open doors. Thank you so much for joining this 4-week episode series. If you haven't tuned into the other 3, I really do suggest you do. You can listen to them in any order, but I think the 4 give you a really great infrastructure with which to go forth this year and beyond, and really strike out and achieve those goals and have all that you want to have in your life and business. Thank you so much again for listening to this week's episode, and I'll chat to you again next week.